Hello everyone. We have been adopting DevOps practices for some time now, and the adoption of these practices has provided us immense benefits both to us as well as our customers. So today we have with us Ravindra Karanam, our DevOps expert, who will be throwing more light into these practices that we have adopted and the benefits that we have got from it. So Ravindra, welcome. And so to start with, could we talk more about the DevOps adoption at Neev?
DevOps practices are deeply embedded into the application development lifecycle at Neev. So the application teams work very closely with the cloud team right from the beginning of the project, throughout the project, to define the source control management system, to define the build procedures, deployment procedures, to define the infrastructure components that must be provisioned, and the configuration of the components that are involved in the application. Throughout the application execution, the development team and cloud team work collaboratively to create a continuous integration, continuous delivery platform that would help us to deliver the application enhancements seamlessly across the environments.
That is really good to know. Moving forward, could you tell us more about the specific DevOps practices that we have adopted at Neev?
We use different DevOps practices throughout the project execution. So when the project starts, we create a project specific Docker or Vagrant image, which helps us to onboard the new team members easily into the project team, as well as create a standardized runtime infrastructure for the project teams to use. Then we use Git as the single point of truth for the application code, the infrastructure code, and then the application configuration, environment configuration, the report templates. In fact, everything related to the application is maintained in the Git as a single point of truth. Okay. And we also use tools like Git flow to enforce standard branching and merging practices. Okay. Then we use Jenkins to orchestrate the continuous integration and the continuous deployment process. So we automate the deployment and automate the build procedures. So we basically automate all the manual tasks. We incorporate the checks and balances to ensure that application is successfully deployed. Okay. And then we also use the external configuration of the application so that when application is deployed to the environment, it can automatically configure itself for that specific environment. So Jenkins basically automates the provisioning of the infrastructure and also configuring the infrastructure using the tools like Chef, Puppet or Ansible. And Jenkins also automates the entire build process, all the steps that must be executed during the build, also execute the unit tests to ensure that the build quality is maintained. Then we also automate the builds, deployment process also as well. So we have the single click deployments which automate the deployment of a build into a given environment. So we automate the deployment process using the single click deployments. Then we also use the external configuration for an application so that when application is deployed into an environment, application can configure itself automatically suitable for that environment. Then we use tools to manage the database, production database. So the data updates to the production data are controlled through Jenkins jobs. So instead of executing the SQL scripts manually on the MySQL prompt or a database prompt, there is separate Jenkins jobs that are set up which reads these SQL scripts from the database, from the version control system, and then execute them on the database.
This is really interesting stuff. Could you tell us more about the benefits that the adoption of these practices has provided to both the internal as well as the external stakeholders?
So the benefits of DevOps practices are many. For the project teams, it basically empowers the development teams and the QA teams to manage the build and deployment environments for their respective purposes. It also provides a consistent and reliable deployments so that the teams don't spend time in figuring out the deployment issues and they focus more on building the application. For the customers, it also helps to make sure that the deployments happen on time, the releases happen on time, there are no rollbacks that will be required because of the deployment issues, and it provides a consistent release cycle so that they can accelerate their concept to adoption life cycle.
This is really interesting stuff. And DevOps being an upcoming field in the industry today and being a very hot subject out there, I think the adoption of these DevOps practices will make us one of the pioneers when it comes to the adoption of DevOps, and will really help us differentiate ourselves when it comes to the kind of offerings we offer to our customers. So thanks, Ravindra. Thanks so much for sharing these inputs with us.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon with more such videos. Stay tuned.